Every show, big or small, always has a character or two that are beloved by the fan base and seem to get a shocking amount of screen time. But for some of us, who see these popular characters as annoying, they actually just drag down the whole show. So here's our list of some of the most popular, horrible people on television. Ross Geller. Ah, Ross. Who doesn't love an emotionally stunted man who never really moved past high school and is desperate for love? His obsession with Rachel is a bit creepy. He pines for her in high school to the point he sets up a secret I Hate Rachel club because she doesn't want to date him. Then, when he finally does get the chance to be with her, he treats her horribly. Not only does he screw up his relationship with her, but in all of his romantic arcs, he never once seems to accept any part of the blame. Aside from his total lack of accountability in his romantic pursuits, he's also just a bad friend. Whenever he's in the room, the conversation seems to shift to his problems and his life. Let's be honest, that kind of person is exhausting. If he seems to be the odd one out, it's probably because Chandler and Joey realized he was better in small doses. Good going, guys. Michael Scott. Steve Carell never won an Emmy for playing Michael Scott, which feels wrong on so many levels, but is a true cosmic injustice given just how much heavy lifting Carell did to make Michael Scott lovable. And Michael is lovable, I know. He means well, he's earnest, and he's capable of profound sweetness. By the time Michael moseys on from Dunder Mifflin 7 seasons in, it's an emotional loss that hits every viewer hard, even this one. It wasn't the loss of Michael that the show never recovered from, however. For all his lovable qualities, Michael is also completely insufferable. He's vain, he's petty, he's impulsive, he's stupid. He'd be annoying just to know as a person, but imagine having him as your boss. As a boss, he's a 5-alarm fire. He regularly crosses serious lines accidentally and entirely on purpose. He's self-involved and oblivious, smiling innocently even as he leaves a wake of destruction, whether he's running Meredith over, ruining Phyllis's wedding, or peering out at Ryan from behind the blinds in his office. Fred Flintstone. While many kids of the 1960s and 70s spewed their breakfast cereal excitedly while cheering Yabba Dabba Doo with Fred Flintstone, a few were instead muttering Yabba Dabba Don't. Despite his genuine love for his family, his loyalty to his job at Slate Rock and Gravel Company, and his kick-ass talent for bowling, Fred wasn't exactly the most endearing character. His boorish eating habits put King Henry VIII to shame. His raucous voice was about as opposite from ASMR as it gets. He had a penchant for gambling and lying to Wilma about it. And it didn't take much to set off the hair trigger that kept his volatile temper in check. Besides being a glutton, a loudmouth, a spendthrift, and a hothead, he's also rather sexist. Granted, Fred was a product of his time, just like many mid-20th century men in real life. However, sometimes this so-called protagonist took things too far. Remember 1962's The Happy Household episode, where Wilma achieves her dream of being a TV show host, only to have Fred sabotage her career because he's pissed she hasn't been home to prepare his dinner. Cook your own Bronto burgers, you bully. Jim Halpert. Did you know? Jim Halpert is also ranked number 26 of 389 on the funniest TV characters of all time. Jim Halpert was a bully hiding behind a sloppy shirt, messy hair, and a casual demeanor that masquerades as workplace camaraderie. Truth be told, he made every day a nightmare for most everyone except for the ladies who crushed on him and the guy who thought he was cool. Yes, Dwight might have been an insufferable bore who took workplace rules a bit too seriously, but did that necessitate endless tormenting day in and day out? Perhaps Michael Scott needed to be demoted to the sales floor, but instead he was needled and prodded into doing an awful job, for which he was usually humiliated, all for Jim's amusement. And those are just the people he used on a daily basis, for Jim has a trail of victims who fell for his nice guy act, people who he used and abused like so much trash. Think of poor Roy, whose life went to hell after Jim stole his fiancée, or Karen. As soon as Pam became available, Jim abandoned her completely. And what of Pam, the love of his life? In the episode of the dinner party, he was going to ditch her at the first opportunity before she was able to outsmart him and keep him in tow. Jim has proved again and again to be untrustworthy, even to those he claims to adore. Jim is not a nice guy. And as the years go by, the facade of his false humour slowly slips away. It is only a matter of time because nothing is left of the nice guy at all. Vic Mackey from The Shield, although it's not so much a matter of character but of performance. Michael Chiklis was inexplicably showered with accolades for his portrayal, which isn't bad, per se. Just a pale, corny imitation of the many other morally ambiguous anti-heroes that defined the rise of the prestige TV era. Thought experiment. Imagine Dean Norris, Hank from Breaking Bad, as Vic Mackey instead. Doesn't the Chiklis version seem embarrassing by, admittedly hypothetical, comparison? Norris, all 5'7" of him, is as overpowering in his physicality as he is in his temperament. He's scary, he's intimidating. His genial, ordinary alpha guy charisma is as effortless as his emotional vulnerability. Chiklis is none of those things, even as he's supposed to be all of them. Sure, he looks the part. He's a tough, bald guy built like a life-sized Lego man. It's no surprise he got cast as a cop, but there's nothing primal about his rage or his violence. Nothing volatile. He's a pretend tough guy. He's got big high school gym teacher energy, which would be fine if he were playing a high school gym teacher, maybe on a CW show, instead of a brutal, angry, hard-nosed street cop. How exactly has this performance remained in the same conversation as James Gandolfini's Tony Soprano, Ian McShane's Al Swearingen, Bryan Cranston's Walter White, or Jon Hamm's Don Draper? Or, for that matter, any of the primary leads from The Shield's cop drama contemporary, The Wire? Actually, the better and more specific counterpoints are Vic Mackey's torture enthusiast predecessors from network TV, Dennis Franz's Andy Sipowicz and Kiefer Sutherland's Jack Bauer. Those guys were the real thing. The Shield revolved around a character who was ostensibly the most dangerous man on the LA police force, but in Chiklis's hands, Vic Mackey is a silly little dork. Oh, quarterbacks. Who doesn't like them? And Matt Saracen is kind, unique, a hard luck case. Some would even argue you're the perfect boyfriend. And honestly, my beef with Matt Saracen has to come with a series of acknowledgements. I understand that on Friday Night Lights, he's an artsy jock who provides a counterpoint to the masculinity of characters like Tim Riggins and Smash Williams. I understand he has way more on his plate than any teenager ever should, and his care of his grandmother is beyond commendable and downright moving. I understand he needs a father figure like Coach, as his own dad is an absentee veteran with some alluded to anger issues. I understand he is a good boyfriend and support to perhaps the most annoying character in the history of television, Julie Taylor. But, even with all those acknowledgements, I don't like Matt Saracen. Matt Saracen is the kind of character who has me yelling at the screen, "Spit it out," as he quietly, repeatedly, stammers a reply to another character, even after you as the viewer have persisted through an entire Saracen growth arc. waiting patiently for the moment he expresses himself with clarity and conviction, a relief which basically never comes. His equivocation in the face of others' belligerence may make him human, but it also made him straight up annoying in my view. And this is all not even to mention his actual athletic ability. Saracens Season 3. Anger at his displacement on the field by J.D. McCoy, which again is a totally human response, registered as frankly ridiculous to me, considering the obvious fact that J.D. is a superior athlete. Give coach a break and be realistic, Matt. Even with the clearest eyes and fullest heart, you are best placed in the background of actual football games. It's fair to be chagrined when an underclassman bumps you back to the bench, but getting mad and raging around at coach like he isn't just fielding the best, most rational team possible is too much. Honestly, let's get Lance on the field. I hope you're enjoying Chicago, Matt. All the best. Leonard Hofstadter. Photo: The Big Bang Theory, CBS. The Big Bang Theory. Where to even start? Firstly, Leonard is one of those classic protagonists that in real life would be completely unbearable to be around. Sure, he's smart and nerdy, but he also tends to be condescending. Most of the time, he's downright mean. Look at his relationships with his friends. He's always snarky, and to Sheldon, he's actually just a jerk. He constantly says things that would be insane to say to someone in real life. He also always uses his humor to make other people the butt of the joke. For a supposedly nice guy, he takes on the role of the bully. Secondly, he really never seems to truly value Penny, or any woman for that matter. The show would be much better if he were taken out of the equation, Darren DeFrank. Leanna Mormont. Leanna Mormont, trivia image. Did you know? Leanna Mormont is also ranked number 16 of 108 on the 100-plus favorite Game of Thrones characters. Photo: Game of Thrones. HBO. Game of Thrones. Remember when Leanna Mormont became an internet meme at the height of Game of Thrones mania? She was in one scene where she almost makes a stupid decision, then Davos gives like a 30-second speech and she changes her mind. Then for the rest of the run of the show, fans were like, Leanna, Mormont is a badass. I'm sure the actress is great, but were we really that desperate for characters to stand back in the show's heyday? Then in the final season, the creators admitted they wanted to give her a big exit because she was such a fan favorite. So she single-handedly takes down a giant at the Battle of Winterfell before she dies. This was the exact mentality that made the ending of GOT so unsatisfying. The show got really popular. Then the creators wanted to reward fans with hell yeah moments. The Cleganes squaring off, Theon going out in a blaze of glory, Jorah Mormont dying in Dany's arms, and countless other fan-servicey moments. The show was never about that. In fact, its buzziest moments came when it was deliberately not fan service. The Red Wedding, Oberyn getting his skull liquefied, you name it. Not that the final season was in any way Lyanna's fault, of course, but her arc is the perfect mini-example of why that last handful of episodes felt so off. Dan Hopper. Chandler Bing. Chandler Bing. Though Ross gets a lot of hate from Friends fans these days, and rightfully so, the life of Chandler Bing really needs to be examined as well. Though many of his actions can be explained away as he grew up in a different time, in a different era, Chandler and his decisions are sometimes downright hateful towards his family and friends. While it is understandable that Chandler holds a lot of resentment from childhood over the breakup of his parents on Thanksgiving, His insistence over not celebrating Turkey Day and his sour attitude about it is downright childish. But the real issue is his relationship with his father, Charles Bing, a drag artist who goes by the name Helena Handbasket when performing. Chandler regards his father as a source of embarrassment and shame, something that torments Helena greatly and causes them great pain. It is clear in the episode, the one with Chandler's dad, that Chandler didn't even want to invite them to his wedding. Chandler is the cause of his estrangement because he lacks an open mind and the ability to accept his father for who they are. Though they were later able to work out their issues, the years of estrangement were due to Chandler's inability to accept Helena's life and choices. Erin Maxwell. Erin. Jon Snow. Jon Snow. One thing that separates Game of Thrones from other fantasy series is it tried to avoid or subvert many of the biggest stereotypes and tropes of the genre. For the most part, they succeeded with flying colours, but they still did one of the biggest in all but name, the chosen one trope. And Jon Snow fits that bill. I've never felt drawn to the chosen one in stories, because often they have to function as an avatar for the reader or viewer, which can lead to them having a bit less of a personality. That's Jon to the letter. Yes, he had a pretty exceptionally shetty life. Yes, he lives his life on the frozen edge of the world. Yes, he was betrayed by the few people in his life he considered family. Is that an excuse to be so morose, bleak, and brooding all the time? I don't think so. The show saves some face with other characters constantly calling out Jon's attitude and demeanour, but I'll never understand the draw to the Icy King in the north. Whenever his scenes came on, my eyes glazed over. Jacob Bryant. Jacob. Daryl Dixon. He had a lot going for him when AMC first launched The Walking Dead, especially for those who read the comics and knew the outcomes for many of the core characters. A character created specifically for the show meant there would always be at least one person who could be on the chopping block at any given moment. Comics be damned. Unfortunately, what we got was a fairly one-note hard-ass with a heart of near-gold guy who was tailor-made for an end-of-the-world apocalypse. Daryl butted heads with every other character on the show, while also managing to be extremely overpowered when it came to the dangers of a zombie-filled world. Suddenly, the one character who we knew nothing about and could stress over their safety became the character you knew was always going to make it out alive. By the time Daryl became more interesting in the later seasons of the show, the rest of The Walking Dead had deteriorated so extremely that it didn't even matter. So here's to Daryl, a character with so much potential squandered. Jacob Bryant. Arya Stark. Arya Stark. Did you know? Arya Stark is also ranked number 3 of 108 on the 100+ favourite Game of Thrones characters. In both the Game of Thrones books and the TV show, Arya was always meant to be the classic not like other girls girl. Her sister likes sewing, but Arya likes swords. Her sister likes girly things, and Arya can't stand them. It's all so typical and boring. Arya and her more violent nature and plotline seem to exist as a way of making male audiences care about some of the female characters, as if men couldn't possibly care about women who are typically more feminine. She's meant to overshadow the other women, but her journey and character development seem very one-note, whereas other women, including her sister, have much more complex and interesting journeys that develop the characters in ways that are both more realistic and oh so satisfying. In conclusion, our favourite character from this list is Michael Scott. Did we miss any of your most annoying yet popular TV characters? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.